This is a great story. In the mid-50s, a school teacher and a former dishwasher repairman collaborated on writing a song allegedly inspired by the suicide note of a despondent man that was included in an article published by the Miami Herald. Still with me? Curiously, there is no evidence of such an incident in the public records of the state of Florida. Nor is there any proof of a news article that was published on the alleged suicide by the Miami Herald. It's the conflicting story, mystifying story of the first #1 pop song by one of the greatest in rock and roll history. It's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you believe in rock and roll and that music can save your mortal soul,
In rock and roll, can music save your mortal soul?
this channel was made just for you. Make sure that you subscribe below right now by clicking the red button. You'll like what interviews we have coming up. In fact, I promise you will. We also have a Patreon. The link for that is right below. You can help us curate this music history. Very important. So it's hard to believe that there was a time when Elvis Presley was not one of the all-time greatest legends of music. But long before he was crowned the king of rock and roll, some of Elvis's fellow musicians looked down upon him as a kid who wasn't going to go anywhere. It's exactly what singer Glenn Reeves thought of Elvis.
There's a 30-mile wind, but you don't feel the breeze, and baby, that'll be love.
This is after he begrudgingly agreed to perform the vocal for a demo of a song crafted for Elvis to record. The song on that demo? Heartbreak Hotel.
Since my baby left, I found a new place to dwell.
Becoming Elvis's first #1 single on the Hot 100. It's actually before it was the Hot 100. And it propelled the 21-year-old into an international phenomenon.
Well, since my baby left, well, I found a new place to dwell.
How the composition of Heartbreak Hotel evolved is a confusing, mysterious, and ultimately puzzling story, though. The co-writers, Mayborn Axton and Tommy Durden, they both claim that the inspiration for the song came from a newspaper article published in the Miami Herald about an unidentified man who committed suicide in a Miami hotel room. Tommy Durden was a steel guitarist playing in bands from Gainesville and Jacksonville, Florida. Although Durden was a professional musician who backed up luminaries like Tex Ritter.
I must be brave.
And also Johnny Cash.
I walk the line.
He didn't make a lot of money as a hired player. He still needed to have day jobs to make ends meet. He was actually a dishwasher repairman. Now, one morning in the summer of 1955, Durden grabbed the Miami Herald from his front porch and he read an article about an unidentified man who killed himself in a Miami hotel room. Now, no one knew the man's name, which seemed to be exactly what the deceased wanted. According to the newspaper report, before taking his life, the man destroyed all of his identification certificates and left a suicide note with only one cryptic line: I walk a lonely street. Durden was haunted by the emotion, the sheer alienation of that lone proclamation, and he began to formulate the theme for a song about a man so heartbroken, so lonely, that he no longer wanted to live. Now, Durden knew he had a powerful premise for a song, but he needed help to write it, so he turned to his songstress friend, a lady named Mayborn Axton. May was a 41-year-old high school English teacher who was also a part-time DJ, publicist, and songwriter. She penned a few hits in the early 50s for the likes of Perry Como and Ernest Tubb.
That's what I really like.
Pick me up on your way down.
She married Naval Officer John T. Axton, and the couple moved to Jacksonville, where May met Tommy Durden for the first time. May also worked for an eccentric impresario named Colonel Tom Parker. When Durden arrived at May's home, he showed her the clipping of this newspaper article of the mysterious man, that committed suicide. She was immediately transfixed by the victim's swan song. May recalled that she just sat there. She was stunned by what she read. She really studied the line, I walk a lonely street, over and over again. May turned to Durden and said, Tommy, Everyone in the world has someone who cares for them, regardless of how good or bad they are, or how high or low their status in life is. When someone reads or hears about what happened to this person, they're going to be heartbroken. Let's put a Heartbreak Hotel at the end of his lonely street. End of quote. I love that. So with May sitting at her piano and then Tommy pacing the floor around her, the two began to write Heartbreak Hotel. In a mere half hour, the song came together.
Since my baby left.
With Axton and Durden creating the imagery of a place where broken-hearted lovers congregate to cry away their sorrow. The finished lyric sheet was emotionally charged with the sadness of broken romance. To record their new creation, Axton and Durden had an electrifying emerging singer in mind. His name? You guessed it, Elvis Presley.
My happiness.
May knew Elvis very well, in fact, and was actually the person that introduced Colonel Tom Parker to Elvis, sadly. Parker eventually became Elvis's manager, as many know. Now, May believed in her heart that Elvis had all of the ingredients to become a big star, but he needed that one big hit. In fact, she promised Elvis that she would be the one to write his first million seller. Heartbreak Hotel was an unusual composition. It didn't fit naturally into any genre of music of the 50s. This is back in the day. Lyrically, the song had a blues feel, which reflected Tommy Durden's love for rhythm and blues, while May's preference, that gravitated towards hillbilly country. The song didn't have a conventional middle eight or a bridge, but Tommy and May were convinced they had a diamond in the rough with the song. The duo needed to make a demo of the song that they could present to Elvis. So they actually asked their friend, local performer Glenn Reeves, to sing the vocal.
Down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel.
After hearing the title of the song, though, Reeves scoffed. He called it the silliest thing he'd ever heard, and he ended up leaving the meeting. Durden recorded the basic vocal fill that they imagined on Axton's tape recorder, and Reeves returned with a change of heart, agreeing to voice the demo.
I'm so lonely I could die.
He actually did it in an Elvis impersonation, his best impersonation. Reeves' demo sounded very similar to Elvis, but Reeves was not a fan of the emerging superstar. He actually said to his friends, "I'm telling you, that boy is not going to go very far." How wrong he would be.
Elvis Presley.
You ain't nothing but.
Even though Elvis was the first performer in mind to record Heartbreak Hotel, Axton initially approached the bluesgrass country duo, the Wilburn Brothers.
Old troubles back in town.
And offered the song to them. However, the brothers actually passed on it. They actually decried the song as strange and morbid. Axton continued to connect the dots by putting together a publishing deal with Tree Publishing in Nashville. Having the publishing in tow, May contacted Colonel Tom to arrange a meeting with Elvis at the annual country music disc jockeying convention that took place in Nashville. At the convention, Elvis was named the most promising male country star of 1955. Now, as we get into Elvis's thoughts on hearing this demo the first time, I want to recognize our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. You know what? You got to go download the new Zenni app to your phone at the App Store. Do it today. This is where you can get all the deals they have going. You know exactly what's going on. The selection is great in there. Download the Zenni app today. You'll love it. So May played Elvis the Glenn Reeves demo of Heartbreak Hotel inside the Andrew Jackson Hotel in Nashville. And Elvis flipped out. He yelled, "Hot dog, May, play that one again." Elvis listened to the song actually 10 times in a row. It reminded him of Roy Brown's Hard Luck Blues, a tune that he referred to as one of his favorites.
The cold ground is my bed.
Elvis was looking for new material for his first album on RCA Victor, and he stated matter-of-factly that Heartbreak Hotel was going to be his next single.
Since my baby left me, well, I found a new place to dwell.
The King swiftly added the song to his live performances from there. He did tweak one line of the lyric from "They Pray to Die" to "They Could Die."
Well, they're so lonely and they could die.
Colonel Tom brokered a recording deal with RCA Victor, and Elvis officially left Sun Records, the label that set his career in motion. The deal with RCA was for a reported, I think it was $35,000. That's really a steal, considering the astonishing dividends that Elvis's records would earn for the label. Factoring in the adjustment for inflation, you think about it, $35,000 is like $390,000 now. At that point, the RCA Victor recording deal with Elvis, that was the largest amount ever paid for a single performer. He set the tone. Now, recording at the studios of RCA Victor was much different than recording at the more laid-back atmosphere at Sun Studio. Now, for one thing, the RCA studio was much larger than the Sun studio, and it was much more regimented, as you can imagine. Elvis's longtime guitar player Scotty Moore recalled that the producers assigned a tape number to everything that was recorded. Everyone was dead serious at RCA Victor, while at Sun, the guys would, sit around and eat hamburgers, between takes. And someone, if they had a new idea, they'd just slowly get back to work. It was just really laid back. Right out of the chute, producer Stephen Scholes discovered a problem when he was recording Elvis during the session for Heartbreak Hotel. RCA had always insisted performers signed to their label must stand very still at the microphone during the recording sessions, so that the mic could pick up the full range of their vocal. This was back in the day. Technology was different. Even the slightest turn of the head could, interfere with the quality of the sound very early on. Scholes instructed Presley to stand at an X that was actually taped on the floor in front of the main microphone, and he cautioned the singer, whatever you do, don't move. Now, Scholes had already found out that Elvis's vocal and his guitar playing were not picked up well during the recording of the track I Got a Woman.
Say, I got a woman way across town. She's a good.
When it came to time to record Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis actually informed Scholes that he had to jump around to sing his songs the right way. It just happens. Elvis explained to him, it's the way I sing. It's the way I sing, baby. To comply with Elvis's constant movement and shaking, Scholes had to completely reconfigure the microphones in the studio so that any sound that Elvis made would be recorded. The Blue Moon Boys joined Elvis on the recording of Heartbreak Hotel, teaming with Presley's regular ensemble of Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and DJ Fontana. The session actually included revered musician Chet Atkins, who also helped Scholes produce the record, and also the great Floyd Kramer on piano. Once he got into the groove with Elvis, though, Scholes tried to capture the sound of Elvis's songs on Sun Records. But he didn't know that Sun owner Sam Phillips used 2 tape recorders, along with a split-second time delay, to create that classic Elvis sound.
That's all right, mama, anyway.
It may have been a display of sour grapes. When Phillips originally heard Heartbreak Hotel, he said, and I quote, "It was a morbid mess." The brass at RCA concurred with Phillips' assessment. They proclaimed that Heartbreak Hotel was a terrible choice to be included on the album, especially after reviewing the finished track and finding that it did not resemble, Elvis's Sun recordings. They really hoped that it would.
If your baby leaves you, you got a tale to tell.
There were internal memos back and forth inside the walls of RCA that indicated plainly that every RCA executive hated the song so much they insisted the song should not be released as a single. They contended that teenage girls, the driving force behind Elvis's burgeoning popularity, they wouldn't want to hear a song about a man that was so lonely that he could die. Of course, that was a gross misjudgment. Elvis had other ideas, and he was undaunted by the label criticism. His gut told him the Heartbreak Hotel would indeed be his first big crossover hit, so he vetoed his detractors.
You could die.
Heartbreak Hotel was dropped as the lead single from his self-titled debut album on RCA Victor. Even Elvis couldn't have predicted just how monstrous the success would be for the song that Mae Axton played for him in that Nashville hotel room months before. Not only was Heartbreak Hotel Elvis's first #1 single on the Billboard Pop Chart, it stayed on top of the survey for 7 consecutive weeks. It also sat at #1 on the country and western chart for an astounding 17 straight weeks, and it peaked at number 4 on the Billboard R&B chart, triple threat there. Heartbreak Hotel was the biggest selling hit of 1956, and just like May had promised, it was Elvis's first million-selling single.
For broken-hearted lovers to cry.
After the incredible rise of Heartbreak Hotel, Tommy Durden and Mae Axton continued to pursue endeavors in music and continued to write songs. The two collaborated on a few other tunes, such as Honey Bop. It was a cut by Wanda Jackson in 1958. But, neither came close to striking gold after Heartbreak Hotel, unfortunately. Durden eventually started a poem business where he could be commissioned to write lyrics to go over a music track. Axton, she stayed friendly with Elvis and tried to recapture the magic of Heartbreak Hotel, but it just wasn't to be. Still, Mae remained a staple in the music business. She worked with many notable country artists like Willie Nelson, who united with Leon Russell on a new version of Heartbreak Hotel that took the song back to number 1 on the Billboard country chart. That happened in 1979.
Well, since my baby left me,
Mae also worked with Eddie Arnold, Mel Tillis, Tanya Tucker, Reba McEntire, and actually put a young Blake Shelton under her wing. Blake Shelton credits Axton for essentially getting him his first record deal in Nashville.
Figured she'd gone back to Austin, 'cause she talked about it all.
Blake telephoned Mae when he was going to move from Oklahoma to Nashville to follow his dream of becoming a country music star, and Mae introduced him to many influential people in the business. Shelton actually stated, "I don't think I would have known where Music Row was if it wasn't for Mae. She was pivotal to springboarding Blake Shelton's career, just like she was for Elvis Presley." Mae Axton and John Axton, they had 2 sons, John Jr., who became an attorney, and Hoyt Axton, actually became a famous songwriter in his own right.
It was Della and a dealer and a dog named Jake and a cat named Kalamazoo.
And an actor.
No, don't shake it. We're going to have to open it now. It won't wait till Christmas.
Hoyt followed in his mother's footsteps, penning several huge pop hits, namely Joy to the World.
Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy.
The Three Dog Night took all the way to number 1. It was actually the biggest song of that year.
Jeremiah was the bullfrog, was a good friend.
Never Been to Spain, another smash for Three Dog Night.
But I've been to Oklahoma.
And the No No song that was a hit for Ringo Starr.
And I said, no, I don't, no more.
Actually, having that number 1 hit with Joy to the World, that made them the only mother and son to write number 1 hits in the rock era. Hoyt was also in a lot of TV and movie roles. His most famous part, of course, Randall Peltzer, the ne'er-do-well inventor and father who finds Gizmo at an antique store in Chinatown and gives the creature to his son Billy as a Christmas gift in Gremlins.
Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante.
For co-authors Tommy Durden and Mae Axton, Heartbreak Hotel would be their ticket to eternal fame. However, the impact of their golden opus is still shrouded in mystery. In every interview that Durden or Axton granted to tell the origin story of Heartbreak Hotel, they always maintained the song was inspired by that purported newspaper article about an unidentified man who left the 1-sentence suicide note before he took his life. But, after extensive research, no one has been able to find that particular newspaper article. There's nothing in the archives of the Miami Herald or any other major news publication in the state of Florida that resembles that account, and there's nothing in the public records either. It does beg the question, why would Tommy Durden and Mae Axton make that story up? Now, Mae Axton passed away in 1997, while Tommy Durden left the earth 2 years after that. It was believed that the truth about the impetus for Heartbreak Hotel may have died with them. But then in 2016, there was a new discovery that actually may explain everything. After extensive research of Southern U.S. press archives published in the year of 1955, journalism professor Randy Boswell came across an article that was very revealing. Boswell uncovered a story of a man by the name of Alvin Krolick. He was an aspiring painter from Chicago. Kralik was a troubled character, apparently despondent from his lack of success as an artist. He turned to petty crime. Truth be told, Kralik's tailspin into thievery followed the devastating heartbreak he developed over his failed marriage to Agnes Sampson, a nightclub musician who was also from Chicago. It would seem that the heartbreak was so severe that Kralik didn't care whether he lived or died. He was actually shot to death in August of 1955 while attempting to rob the Busy Bee Liquor and the Tackle store in El Paso, Texas. Liquor and Tackle. Kralik, wearing a golfer cap, black t-shirt, and moccasins, first asked the store owner, Delta Penny, for a bottle of whiskey. And then Kralik pulled out his gun that he bought in Tucson, and he demanded cash from the register. Penny was a former policeman. He was ready for such an altercation and had a pistol hidden under the counter. So he quickly pulled out the gun from under the counter and he shot Kralik 9 times. 9 times. The authorities labeled the cause of death as justifiable homicide, although he was not a suicide victim. Reporters covering the shooting printed words that Kralik allegedly used to describe his tortured existence that will sound very familiar. This is the story of a person who walked a lonely street. The phrase was included in stories and headlines about Kralik's death in several U.S. newspapers over the next few days after the shooting. There are papers in Texas and North Carolina and Alabama. It seems like it would be an incredible coincidence if the article about Kralik's death wasn't connected to Tommy Durden's germination of Heartbreak Hotel. I mean, too much of a coincidence. The articles began to circulate in late August of 55, less than a month before Durden and Axton began their writing session for Heartbreak Hotel in Jacksonville in September that same year. It could be that Durden and Axton, for that matter, confused the newspaper story about Kralik with a suicide. Sure, there wasn't any intention to dupe the public or to mask the truth, but the lack of evidence to support their assertion of the origin for the song's inspiration, it really made people wonder. Interesting. One thing that can't be denied, though, is the impact of when Elvis Presley, his definitive interpretation of Heartbreak Hotel. I mean, when John Lennon first heard Heartbreak Hotel on the radio, he said he could hardly make out what Elvis was singing about. It didn't matter, though. He still had the experience of having his hair stand on end.
Now the bellhop's tears keep flowing, the desk clerk's dressed in black.
Lennon and his friends had never heard American voices singing like that before. To that point, American singers like, Sinatra and Bing Crosby and Perry Como enunciated every word.
Dream along with me.
And then, of course, along comes Elvis with what John Lennon described as hillbilly hiccuping on echo tape.
You will be so lonely, baby. You will be lonely.
Fellow Beatle George Harrison had a very similar feeling when he first heard Heartbreak Hotel in '56. He called it a rock and roll epiphany. George shared that the song turned a well-mannered schoolboy into a guitar-crazed truant who auditioned for Lennon's first band, the Quarrymen, a year later. And Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, he wrote in his autobiography that Heartbreak Hotel had a huge effect on him. Beyond Presley's singing, total effect of his sound and his cadence completely mesmerized Keith Richards. And add to that list one Robert Plant, the great Robert Plant, who said that Heartbreak Hotel changed his life. Plant was only 8 years old at the time, but his recollection of the first time that he heard the song on the radio was vivid. Plant elaborated that the song aroused something animal inside of him. It made him want to find out more about this Elvis beyond his cool, handsome exterior. I could go on and on and on. TV appearances back in the 50s and 60s were enormous springboards to launch an artist's career or, break a hit single. In the 50s, there were only 3 broadcast television networks in the U.S. And a performance on a national program back then could literally attract an entire nation. You think about it. Heartbreak Hotel, it got a tremendous boost when Elvis first performed the song on February 11th, 1956, in front of a national audience on The Stage Show, a popular TV series was hosted by Jimmy and Tommy Dorsey. Actually, where Sinatra got his start with the Dorsey brothers. A few months later, Elvis performed his groundbreaking single on The Milton Berle Show, coinciding with its ascension to #1 on the American pop charts. In 1995, Heartbreak Hotel won the Grammy Hall of Fame Award, solidifying Mae Axton and Tommy Durden's indelible milestone in rock and roll history. I gotta tell you, I knew who Elvis was before I knew who Michael Jackson or Prince or the Police were. My dad raised me on the King since I could speak. I remember I got an Elvis #1 hits cassette for Christmas. I was really little. I think it was like 6 or 7. I was blown away listening to that tape over and over. Combing my hair like Elvis, trying to dance like and move my hips. Then I was blown away when I got the lead in the high school play Bye Bye Birdie. I got to be Elvis Presley for 5 nights. The 5 nights that the play ran. It was more like Elvis by the way of Morrissey, but I was in heaven. I have an Elvis couch in my living room. I've collected Elvis memorabilia forever. He's the king. Nobody comes close to Elvis. Nobody.
So lonely they could die.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Much more to come on Elvis Presley. Have you seen the new movie? Pretty cool. Moves kind of fast. Leave us a comment about the King of Rock and Roll. What do you remember about this song? What are your thoughts on the writing of Heartbreak Hotel? I think it's such a fascinating story. Let's get a good discussion going. Make sure that you subscribe below so you never miss out on our daily videos. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.